Good Saturday morning. John and Gumby here. How you doing on your goals? I got 43 days of a 10,000 steps or more. How you doing on your 20-mile march? Are you plugging along? Are you working it out every day? How you doing? I got my hair cut, so that was cool. I went on the app and it was 39 minutes, so I could live with 39 minutes wait. So I got my hair cut. So hopefully you guys are getting a chance to get your haircut done. Today's theme of this video is called social awareness. This is the phrase that I'm going to start using rather than that SD word. Okay? What does it mean? Well, to me, what it doesn't mean is that when we get together as a family at home, we don't sit 6 feet apart at my house, right? Or what it means to me is when I'm here at CIT and I'm working, and let's say I'm going in to talk to Amy, well, I generally sit in a chair with a bit of distance in between us. I think what it means is that at each situation I find myself interacting with people, I'm aware of the various risks. And the way I interpret those risks are the way that I'm going to conduct my behavior, hopefully that both of us feel comfortable. If for some reason they're not, I would hope that they would bring it up. If I'd overstep my bounds, right, they'd bring it up and we can sit down and talk about it. I think moving forward for our groups as they look to start to travel, they're going to need to decide what their personal social awareness is, right? I think it's totally fair to think about this, right? So let's just say we got TCU flying in, the volleyball team flying in, right? The TCU volleyball team, they fly in. These are people that really every day they're practicing together. They're probably living in dorms or in a house on campus together. They're eating meals together. That when they get on our bus, they're going to have a different perception of social awareness than what we do, right? Or maybe two strangers on a city bus. So let's just keep that in mind as we move forward, that social distance can really start to look different for each group. A phrase, I was on a Zoom call a few weeks ago, and a phrase that I heard was really cool. And it was actually a woman from Broadway was talking about this, and she talked about fan pods. And I thought that was a really cool perspective. So picture this, right? Kim and I have 7 people in our family. So let's just say we buy tickets to go to a show, and we're going to go to the Civic Center. The way I see fan pods working is they put us into a cluster at the Civic Center or a pod at the Civic Center, and then they have a predetermined distance between us, our family, our pod, our cluster, and the next grouping. It really makes sense to me because as venues work to reopen up, largely we're in the group transportation, they're in the group entertainment business. Group is an important element of what we do. So we have to be able to make this work for everybody. We have to have this work out and we have maximize the amount of people that we can have partake in this, all keeping in mind that we have to be responsible and we have to reduce the risk to everyone else around, right? So I think it's important to think that as we move on to busing, this is kind of what we're going to see. We're going to see some groups are going to have a tolerance for a certain seating program. Some groups are not. And I think right now, the way we're seeing it and the way we're looking at it at CIT is that we're going to let those groups decide. So I kind of made a couple little things here I'll show you. So, I mean, I know it's not fancy and I don't get fancy, right? But, the D is the driver, right? And each of these each of their seats, maybe one group is going to see a seating pattern that goes in the yellow dots like this, right? But maybe another group has less of a tolerance or they don't know each other as well. Oops, so let's put the driver the same way. And they might be spread out just a little bit more. But then kind of a little bit on the whole fan pod thing, maybe one of the groups is going to be like this, where you're going to get more people onto that bus, right? I think, again, it's all going to depend. I was talking with a gentleman when this first broke loose, and he was telling me, he was saying, my wife and I had plans to go to Italy during this, and he goes, that's off the table. We're not doing that. But he goes, I could see maybe going with the group from our church and going to Branson. And I think as we look to open up, we're going to see those kinds of things. Now, what we have to remember in this is that the important element is that every group, every business, every venue, every individual will have their own sense of social awareness. And it's not fair for any of us to judge what their decision is. We have to respect that. We owe it to each other to listen and talk with open minds and come to a workable solution. So I started this whole video series with Semper Gumby. We started our spring break season with the theme of Semper Gumby. I think right now we just got to keep going with that because it's going to be that's going to be where it's going, right? We have to understand that we always need to be flexible, and let's start talking about social awareness as we look to open up our businesses, our groups, our venues. Gumby and I want to thank you for all you do for CIT. Semper Gumby.